With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome back, Ram fans. This is Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are proud members of the Fans First Sports Network. That's fansfirstsports.com. You can also follow us on YouTube. Our channel is at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. You'll hear from my co-host, Tom, on occasion as well. Hey, we're not Rams insiders. We're just longtime fans who love talking about our Los Angeles Rams. Let's get to it. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Mark from Rams Up here. I got Paul Walia on board. What's going on, Paul?
Double Ram horns to the Ramily. Everything is wonderful out here in the East Coast, holding it down. Excited. Looking forward to the start of the season.
Yeah, and we got a lot to talk about. We don't really have a format we're following today. There are a few things we want to talk about, though. Just seems pretty timely. We wanted to talk about the 16 undrafted free agents. I did a little spin on them the last episode, and Paul wanted to chime in too. And he hasn't heard what I had to say about these guys, which is probably a good thing. We'll get his fresh look at these guys. I'll share the screen so that you can talk about the ones you want to talk about. And basically, we started with on the left, I started working through the offense there, 6 guys on offense, and then a bunch of guys on defense. So who on this list are you excited about?
Well, there are a couple of players, and before I start, and just for Ram Nation, so a lot of these UDFAs are also going to get released, as well as from other teams. So there's 2 parts of the UDFA process, the ones that actually make the team, and then that whole process again of who didn't make other teams that we may find valuable. So just right off the bat, just some shameless bias, Ram Nation. There's a kid on here, JJ Lapp, who went to SUNY Cortland right out here in New York. He's a Long Island kid who's just 10 minutes south of me from Stony Brook, New York. SUNY Cortland won the D3 championship this year. He plays wide receiver. He had 70 receptions, 1,291 yards, 4 touchdowns. Great hands, needs to work on his routes, but the will to win is definitely there when you watch it. Has to get stronger, has to get better with the yak. That's one thing that jumped out at me. Went down way too easily, but you can definitely see he has a lot of the elements to make it in the NFL. He ran a 4.54 at his pro day, but what really stood out with me is his ability to catch the ball when there was a defender that was on him tight. So I thought that was really, really impressive from what I saw. Having said that, he's got the size. He's 6 feet, 187, which is, Mark, you and I have been talking about that profile that they look for. He's not only a slot receiver. He played the X and the Z over at SUNY Cortland. Did also play a little bit in the slot. So shout out to JJ Lapp representing Strong Island. So I really do. I hope he makes the roster. And shout out to SUNY Cortland for a great season and winning the championship.
Yeah, I have to admit, being a West Coaster, I was not familiar with SUNY Cortland. There's a handful of them I am familiar with, not that one, but I guess they're starting to establish a football tradition there. Okay, anybody else?
First time in their program history, by the way, that they won the championship. So congrats to them. So I think he has a legitimate chance to make the roster. The other one is who I think has a really good chance to make the roster, in my opinion, is Kenny Logan. I'm a big fan of Kenny Logan. I was surprised he wasn't drafted. I thought he was going to go in the 7th round or early as 6th, but probably in the 7th. He's a safety out of Kansas. What's really unique about him, he's also a kick returner. So I think that's really, that might have been sort of the subtle, I guess, that pushed the Rams to pull the trigger on this one. But I think he's a great player. I love to watch him play. He's a physical safety. He's been remarkably consistent in his play and in his numbers. He can play in the box. He's better as a box defender. But, for all I read his scouting reports, and they always knock his coverage ability. The kid has defended 26 passes and intercepted 6 over his career. So the kid can definitely cover. All right. He just may not be a center field type of safety, but the kid could definitely cover. You don't put up numbers like that if you can't cover. Career numbers, he started 44 games, so the kid has played a ton. I love to watch. He's a willing tackler. He throws his body around. He can come on the blitz. I really think he's got a legitimate shot to make this team. I love the way this kid plays. I think he fits in perfectly. I love his mindset. I like Kenny Logan.
Yeah, and we're going to have a discussion, perhaps in our next roundtable. We're going to revisit the depth chart and how some of these guys fit in. A lot of them may not fit in very well, but as far as the safety group goes, if they really want to keep Quentin Lake, if they don't want to put Quentin Lake on this safety depth chart, you got Tanner Ingle, Jason Taylor. If Kenny Logan can beat out both of those guys, it could be an opportunity for him.
Okay. And the added bonus for him, he's a special teams demon, so I think that's the added bonus for him.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
And who else?
So I really like the defensive back, Cam Lemkin from Washington State. It's interesting. Jaden Hicks was one of my favorite players. I love Jaden Hicks. I love his style of play. Cam comes in at 5'9", 180. I think the Rams would be great to try to corner the market on all the players named Cam, right? Just add him to the secondary. He played 2 seasons with the Cougars. He was prior to that, he was a starter with Utah State. He's got experience both out wide and in the slot. He's described as a very physical and aggressive corner. And from what I watched, that's exactly what I saw. He does not play small. Some people might say 5'9", 180 is small, but he does not play small. That really jumps out at you when you watch his style of play. He's aggressive to the ball. He attacks the hands of the wide receiver. He's willing to support the run, and that's a big deal in the NFL. And that's something for a lot of corners. That's the reason they're not playing in the NFL, is that ability to support the run. At his pro day, he did fairly well. He ran a 4.58, 11 reps on the bench, 34.5-inch vertical. So, the kid's athletic, but I just, when we were talking about Devonshire and you were talking about feisty corners, this kid is feisty, but he's also physical. I like it. And he's got good coverage skills. So he's another player, I think, who has a legitimate shot to push somebody off the bubble and take their spot.
Yeah, he's one guy that I'd really struggled to find information on the draft reports I checked. So I kind of glossed over him. Who else you got? Anybody else you think has a real good shot at?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I have a couple more. One of the players, as soon as he got signed, I texted you because, he's someone, I'm a big SEC fan, and when he was coming to LSU from Oregon State, Omar Speights. He was 4 years as a full-time starter, 3 years at Oregon State, 1 year at LSU. He is such an intriguing player. I cannot explain why he has not been more productive. He had, when you look at him, he's listed as 6 feet, 232. When you watch him play, I mean, sometimes he looks absolutely lights out fantastic, and sometimes he just looks lost in space. And I think he has a legitimate shot to make the team, because the things that I do like about him is that he's rock solid in coverage. He's physical. When he does read the play, he's able to tackle with high efficiency. He's physical. He's a good form tackler, like I said. And like I said, his pass coverage skills really stand out for me. I see him. We were talking about like that linebacker position that Howard filled for us, that role. That's how I sort of see him. I think that might be a good entry point for him. I think he'll make the roster just simply because of that. I think that combination of him and Boom, I think would be for that sort of coverage linebacker, that Omaha linebacker position, where we say the other linebacker, I think would be perfect for him. So I think Speights is a good candidate. I like what I see.
Yeah, and again, in his case, and I kind of honed in on him too. It's just you look at the depth chart, there's an opportunity there, Yep, and the one thing I did read about him is, maybe you're alluding to this, he kind of one of those guys that just does his job, but doesn't really jump off the screen a lot as a playmaker, but disciplined, gets his job done. Whatever you tell him to do, he's probably going to get it done, but don't expect a bunch of highlight reels from him. Is that it? Is that your?
I got a couple. Yeah, I got a couple others, but like you said, I think you summed it up perfectly. I think that's why that in a limited role, this kid might stand out, right? I think the more he plays, the more his shortcomings are going to get highlighted. But if you sort of reverse that scenario, I think he'd be a solid contributor. The other kid is Charles Woods, the defensive back from SMU. He talked about trying to hard to find this kid is hard to find tape on this guy. But once you do, it's actually pretty impressive. He's definitely better at man than at zone. He's super athletic and aggressive. One thing that I did read on the SMU media was that he plays big in the biggest games. And that's a characteristic I think is absolutely fits in line with what the Rams like. He started in all of the SMU games this year. He recorded 27 tackles. He had 1 tackle for loss, led the team with 11 pass breakups. So the kid made plays. So he's a playmaker. Really good defender. Played the pass really well, and he was a willing tackler. So I don't have an explanation of why he's not drafted. From what I saw in the limited snippets that I was able to find, he looked really, really solid. So I'm hoping his athleticism wins out. He gets really high marks from what I saw, his ability to make plays. So I think he has a legitimate shot. Taking a look at our secondary, 5'11", 191, he'd fit in nicely.
Yeah, with the secondary, it may come down to, when they do that math at the end, how many cornerbacks they're going to carry? Are they willing to only carry 3 tight ends? All that math that goes on could come down to that. And then the deciding factor is very often special teams, as we know. And hey, if these guys don't make the team, a lot of them will be on the practice squad, at least a handful of them.
And then added talent for Charles Woods. A nice segue about the special teams. He was also coming off the edge and blocking kicks. So that might be an interesting talent that'll get highlighted when he tries to make the team.
Is that your last guy?
And the last guy is Anthony Goodlow, the defensive end from Oklahoma State. I just see him as a Jonah Williams replacement. A lot of the same characteristics. Solid build, 6'4", 270 and change. They actually had him at Oklahoma State standing up and with a hand on the ground, but mostly looks like to me he's a good, solid run defender, a real good blue-collar defender. High marks for character based on the Oklahoma State media. And he's a workout warrior. There was a really nice video segment where he and another player that he's friends with, they go in the off season and train with this specialist training unit, and just enhance their skills in terms of getting ready for the draft. So great length. His arms 30 and tested well in the 40, 4.96. Shuttle was pretty good, 4.42. And he played at Tulsa and at Oklahoma State before he transferred to Oklahoma State. Obviously, he was at Tulsa, and good production at both schools. So that's always a good sign. So, I like the fact that he, invested time and effort to get better for his senior season and for the draft. So, I like what I read, and I like what I see on the limited film that I could find on him.
Yeah, and again, there could be an opportunity there. Again, how many defensive linemen they carry and what types of defensive linemen they need as they figure out the final roster could be an opportunity there. Is that it? Is that what you got as far as the
year? And the last two to close it out, I always love the trenches. Tuli, Latuli, Gas, and Noah, right? The human hydrant, right? He's not just a run stuffer. 6'1", 295. He's just a hustle player who can plug a gap. The kid's a real warrior. I would love, he's the kind of kid that will make your roster, man. He'll do anything to help you win. And then the other kid is Josh Wallace, the kid from Michigan. Came to Ann Arbor. He was a graduate transfer after 3 seasons at UMass. He can play both inside and outside. Good zone coverage player. When you watch this kid, he's a good scheme fit. He has good length. Kid likes to tackle. He likes to throw his body around. Watch that Michigan tape. He's always throwing his body around, likes to support the run. The one knock against him is the long speed. I was not able to find any 40 times on him. And the other thing was he has had a very low interception total in his career, only one. I think that's sometimes misleading at the collegiate level. That was the major knock against him. But when I watched him on Michigan, I mean, the kid, he's physical. He likes to play in the zone. He likes to have the ball in front of him. I think he's a good scheme fit. So I think both Tuli and Wallace have a good shot as well to make the squad.
Yeah, and Wallace, as I mentioned last episode, he was a 3-time team captain at UMass. He's a UMass transfer. And, the Rams care about that stuff. Now, do you think Tuli can provide some pass rush from the interior there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they used to say that. Remember, they used to say that about Greg Gaines when he came out of Washington.
Yeah,
that's why
true.
I'm mentioning it. Remember, if you remember the profile about Gaines when he came out of Washington, was that he had no pass rush ability. And interestingly enough, the Rams used him a lot of times on pass rush downs. So, so I think it's a lot of times the kids that are, playing that gap control style at the collegiate level, like Tyler Davis said it best, they need the opportunity, right? And they need the coaching. And a lot of times they're sort of coached to be one-dimensional because you may have a lot of depth at that position. Right. Yeah. And everybody has to sort of carve out a role. And Michigan is a great example of that, of Ram Nation. They had so many D linemen and they were rotating guys in. I think the average snap count for one of their starters was like 30 some snaps, which is absolutely amazing that they were able to keep it that low. Maybe that's why that defense was so effective, because the linemen were fresh all the time. That rotation was deep and talented. So, I think in this case, from what I saw, he definitely looks like he has enough wiggle to get after the passer.
Good stuff. Now, enough of the UDFAs. I think we've covered that pretty well. You wanted to revisit, actually, I think what you want to do is brag about how well you did identifying your Puka Power picks and how well they got overdrafted. Basically, that was the point of the Puka Power picks, guys that were getting labeled as day 3 picks, later round picks that deserve to be drafted earlier and most likely will. And that turned out to be the case, I guess, huh?
Yeah, we were all pleasantly surprised by a lot. I think that was a theme throughout this draft, not just for the Rams, for a lot of other teams. A lot of other teams, if you take a look at their picks, a lot of them were not combine monsters. Right, a lot of them were these high character, high production guys that teams were very confident that they could come in and produce and be reliable leaders in the locker room. And that was a trend I saw throughout this draft. And just to give a Ram Nation a comparison, we identified 43 players in total that were especially nominated as Puka Power Picks. The whole idea was that we were going to identify these players. They were being ranked as we said the cutoff was the average draft position was 100, right? We identify these players based on things like character, leadership, work ethic, also production, obviously, and may have, I don't know, maybe limited arenas in some one or two dimensions. They may not, wow the scouts. And we knew who those players were. And I think a great example of that was someone like Jordan Jefferson, who was being labeled as simply a nose tackle. And we identified him. Not only did he lead all D linemen at reps at the combine on the bench, which, JJ showed everybody, he got drafted 116 overall, Mark. 116 to a player nose tackle. We talked about Mount McKinley. Mount McKinley went 97. He cracked the top 100. A player, right? He went to Cincy. Couple of linebackers that we cited. Leofau, 87, Mark. He went to Dallas at 87, right?
I remember you texting me when he got drafted, your disappointment that he thought he might fall to the Rams at some point.
I thought he was going to be a Ram. I really did. Tyke Smith went 89 to Tampa Bay. Hopper, the linebacker, from Missouri, 91 to Green Bay. Green Bay had a great draft, by the way. And that kid, Luke McCaffrey, 100, right after our pick, right after we took Cam, he got picked by Washington. He went at 100. But also shout out to Cole Bishop, number 60 to Buffalo. Rosengarten, the tackle from Washington. The kid, who I said, I love this kid's feet, man. He can play on either side. 62 to the Ravens, right? The linebacker from Kentucky, T. Wallace, who just blew it up at the combine. They said it was too small. 72 to Carolina.
I know he went pretty early. Where did Sione Vaki go? Do you have that in front of you? I should have looked that up.
Rubbing salt into the wounds.
Detroit,
132, Mark. 132 to Detroit.
To the Lions. Yeah.
And I said somebody was going to draft this kid and say, listen, we're going to put you on offense. When they drafted him, they announced him as a running back. And right now I read a couple of articles, and I don't know if it's necessarily true. Probably will know more during camp, is that it looks like they're going to – that's a crowded running back room over there. They're going to give him a shot to play running back. And I think he's going to open some eyes because this kid can play. The one kid that I will say that I think is in a great situation is Wiley, the tight end from TCU. Mark, he went 131 to Kansas City. So he's the other tight end in Kansas City to learn from Kelsey. So they're really excited because they do want to run a little bit more two tight end over there. So I think he's in a great position. Another player, Bartolini, that really, really talented center that I like. He went 117 to Indy. And the quiet lunch pail SEC guard, Layden Robinson, Mark, New England, 103.
Wow.
So overall, all 43 picks that we nominated as Puka Power Picks were either drafted or signed as undrafted free agents. The last one, Rosemy Jack Saint, just got signed the other day. So that pretty much, and he and Gabe Hall were the last two. But
Gabe
overall, overall, we had 2 that went in the second round, 8 that went in the third round, 8 that went in the fourth round, 11 that went in the fifth round, 5 in the sixth, 4 in the seventh, and 5 that were UDFAs. So overall, if you do the math, it's pretty impressive. 18 of the 43 picks wound up going round 4 or higher.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called
The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
And you could tell by the names I just read off, these were not, guys that we were calling sleepers, and these are like legitimate second rounders. These were not household names. So there is definitely something to that Puka mindset. We see it when people talk about that Mamba mindset in basketball. It's the same thing here when it comes to football. And all these Puka Power picks, everybody from Trey Taylor, the kid from Air Force. We saw the kid from the CFL, Stiggers. He went in round 5. A lot
Ray
of
Davis.
Yeah, Ray Davis. What a great position he's in. He's in Buffalo, right? He went to school in New York. He's now upstate New York in Buffalo. So what a great! And I'm telling you, he's going to get a lot of play time. He's going to show very early that he deserves to get the rock.
Speaking of Buffalo, I did want to mention, and everything's on the table for this episode, but we'll try to hone in on some of these draft stories. I thought it was really odd for Buffalo to give up that draft position, and then the Chiefs turned around and used it for the fastest guy in the draft. I thought that was, I don't know if Buffalo knew what they were going to do, but I have a feeling they're going to rue the day they made that trade.
Well, that's interesting because when we were doing a couple of mocks, remember we were getting trade offers. One of the things I always used to say was that you never trade. Number one, you never trade within your division, and you don't trade within your conference, particularly with a team that just won the Super Bowl. What was Buffalo?
Yeah, and Buffalo and Kansas City. I mean, they've obviously Buffalo. If there's one team they don't want to help outside of their division, it's the Chiefs, right?
Exactly.
And,
I mean, it still stings me to this day that the Rams traded Wendell Tyler to San Francisco, but that one I'll never understand. But there are certain things you just don't do. I'm with you. I don't understand that one either.
And I wanted to touch on this rumor I heard just this morning, and I don't know what to believe, and I'm not sure I believe this, but someone, I think it was Chad Reuter of NFL.com, is adamant that if Bo Nix had been there at 19, the Rams are going to select him. How do you feel about that? Do you believe it, I guess, is the first question.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that, and I think a lot of that misinformation that we had said we had said it right in this one of the roundtables. I said it, and I think a couple of you had said it as well. The Rams have never operated that way, where they let out all that information and they make things publicly known. I think a lot of that misinformation was to get people to do exactly what happened. Jockey for position, take players early, which just pushed other players down, and exactly that. And look what happened. It played out perfectly. Jared Verse at 19, you couldn't script that better.
Yeah, and I think we had talked about the Rams drafting a quarterback of the future as long as it's in the second round. It was my opinion. I don't know if we all agreed on that, but I wouldn't have an issue with the Rams drafting, Bo Nix in the second or Spencer Rattler in the fourth, if that's the guy they want. But this year, I really preferred they draft guys that are going to help them get back to the Super Bowl, which is what they did, right?
Yeah, I think that was their focus. I think, sometimes it's first things first, unless the opportunity presents itself, like you were saying, right? And maybe this time around, the opportunity did not present itself. Who knows next year? We'll see what happens. And, like we saw with Carson Wentz, sometimes, an opportunity unfolds during the season. Something happens in the off season. Who knows? Listen, how many people called the Michael Penix deal? Nobody. Right. No one did. So that's what I'm saying. The nature of the draft is so fluid. And I think sometimes people get caught up in, this should happen this way, this should happen that way. If that were true, the percentage of first-round picks would not be abysmal that don't make it in the NFL, right? So there's a lot that happens, and I think this draft was a great example of that. Certain things were prioritized early on. There were teams that wanted a quarterback, And the teams that didn't need a quarterback, it really favored them because they were able to sort of stack the board in their favor. And you saw a lot of teams walk away with picks that they never probably would have been on their selection list.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to be gained by the Rams if they were to share during the draft or after the draft at any time that, hey, we wanted Brock Bowers. We were going to select Bo Nix. Nothing to be gained by sharing that. I mean, if it's true, there's something to be gained by sharing it if it's BS, But so I just never know what to believe. It's good talking points, good, water cooler talk, bar room talk, whatever. But I don't put a lot of stake in it either. So we had talked about discussing over the next few weeks, we should probably talk about other teams' drafts. And the one I suggested we talk about, I mentioned it in one of the recent episodes. I think you may disagree. You're welcome to disagree, but I think the Arizona Cardinals draft could be franchise altering, and part of that is the number of picks they had. They had more draft capital than anybody going in. But if you look at this group, and there's a couple of picks I don't necessarily like, but they walked away with a really good group of players. Do you want me to run down the list, or do you have it in front of you? I'll share with the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Share with them so that Ram Nation can see as we go through it.
Yeah, I'm not going to share it on the screen. I'll just read the names off here real quickly. Marvin Harrison, the wide receiver, kind of a no-brainer. The edge rusher, Darius Robinson. The Rutgers cornerback. Can't go wrong with Rutgers, right?
Max Melton.
Yeah. Isaiah Adams, the guard. Tip Ryman, the tight end, which is a player I read more about after the draft and I kind of like. The Elijah Jones, the cornerback. You remember Dadrian Taylor Demerson? He was a safety that I thought would be a good fit for the Rams. Offensive tackle Christian Jones in the 5th round. That's a really good value, I think. Don't know much about Tejuan Palmer, the wide receiver. Jaden Davis, the cornerback.
I really like it.
Yeah. So how do you feel about their draft? I tend to think that the arrow's pointing up for the Cardinals and maybe slightly down for the Seahawks and 49ers in some regards. I know you like the Seahawks draft, but we'll focus on the Cardinals. How do you like this Cardinals draft?
Yeah, and for Ram Nation, we're going to, as the segments go forward, we're going to do one NFC West team for each segment. So Mark had a great idea. Let's start with Arizona because I agree with him. I think they had a really good draft. Just starting from the beginning, I mean, obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. It's a great wide receiver. It definitely fills a need. I think he and Kyler Murray are going to click from day one. So he's a legitimate game breaker. There's no question about it. So I think he's going to fit in perfectly.
Well, let me ask you a question real quick. Would you have taken Malik Neighbors if you were them?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, if I were them, no, I think probably would have gone with Harrison.
Okay, fair enough.
Probably would have gone. I love Malik Neighbors. I'll tell you, I think Malik Neighbors has just, but I think for this particular franchise, going back to your comment, I think for the Arizona Cardinals, they needed this type of player. I think Malik Neighbors would have been hard for them to sort of manage, in my opinion. I think Malik Neighbors, he definitely needs structure around him and mentoring around him for him, particularly early on in his career.
Okay, sorry I interrupted you. You're gonna
no, but that's a great question. I think Harrison was the safest pick for them when it came to wide receiver, and I think that was the right move.
And then next up, we had Darius Robinson out of Missouri. We didn't talk a lot about him leading up to the draft.
You know what it was, Mark? He was an interesting player. He was a very polarizing player after the combine. Prior to the combine, he was flying up the draft boards. So he is a player at Mizzou that was highly productive, has great size, has that size-speed combo that everybody covets. But, he had less than optimal combine. But was a leader at Mizzou, checks all the other boxes. So I think for the Arizona defense, what he brings is that he's able to get after the passer. That's his strong suit. He also plays the run really well. Listen, you can't teach size and you can't teach speed, and this kid has it. So with quality coaching, were there other players there? Yes, absolutely. They went with him. If I had to give it a grade, I would say B+ for Darius Robinson. I would give them an A.
Yeah, it sounds like poor combine performance, team leader, gets it done on the field, but some of the measurables not quite there. Sounds like a Rams draft pick.
Exactly. It all depends how much value. But one thing he can do, he can definitely get after the passer. So I think that's probably what sold them.
Okay. So then we had Max Melton. I know you loved him, but you're biased.
Got to give the day on this one.
You're biased.
Clearly biased. But in all honesty, Ram Nation, it definitely was a great value pick. Mad Max Melton is probably, without doubt, one of the best cornerbacks in this draft. He was very, very consistent over the last couple of seasons. He gets it done. Always went against the other team's top wide receiver. Physical, plays the ball well. Some people said it was a little bit early at 43, but this is a passing league. When you get a corner that is basically letting you know that they're going to win for you at every phase of the game, you got to pull the trigger. And Arizona needs help at that position, so I think it was a great fit. Love his attitude. Love his work ethic. All the intangibles are there. I think this was a grade A selection for them. No question about it.
Yeah, and Trey Benson, former teammate of Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. And I guess they've already been trading some friendly barbs there.
Back and forth, yeah.
Yeah, so you like Benson, right?
Yeah, I remember I had said to you, I said some teams are going to walk away with, and listen, we already talked about Ray Davis in Buffalo. If people don't realize that's a bargain, they got Ray Davis at pick like I forgot what it was, like 127. You talk about bargain. So watch what he does up at Buffalo if they give him the rock early. But I mean, getting Trey Benson in round 3, I think he came in at pick 66. I think Trey Benson is a legit starting running back in the NFL. He can do it all. He runs with power. He can bounce it to the outside. He's got great vision, great contact balance, and the kid can catch. So
yeah, and they have the same problem the Rams have. They have a good running back, James Conner there, but he tends to get banged up a lot as well. So add some insurance there. We don't have to talk about
it. It's a nice 1-2 combo. Yeah. I think that's a phenomenal 1-2 combo.
Yeah. I guess it might be a good idea to catch Arizona early this year on our schedule, where all these rookies get rolling, right? We don't have to talk about all these guys, but Tip Ryman, the tight end out of Illinois, did a little bit of a dive into him. And I guess, if you're looking for a guy to wipe out potential tacklers in the run game, Tip might be the guy, right?
When they were talking about this draft, they were saying weak tight end class. And all of a sudden, this kid went to a couple of showcases, and all of a sudden they were like, hey, we might have something here. Illinois put out a couple of really nice prospects this year in the draft, if you think about it, from Newton all the way down. And before we talk about Tip, what about the guard right before him?
Yeah, I skipped him, Isaiah Adams.
Yeah, remember we talked about
back-to-back Illinois. I didn't even notice that. There you go.
These two picks, in my opinion, they were definitely earlier than anticipated. So yes, everybody's right about that in their analysis, but what they're not picking up on, these two picks, in my opinion, were purposeful. These are blue-collar, lunch pail types. They're going to show up, get it done. They are physical. They are going to bring that element of physicality. Raymond, the tight end, not only can he block, but he's talented. He can catch, and he runs like a tank once he gets the ball in his hands. Isaiah Adams is probably one of the most consistent guards in college football. Plays rock solid on the inside. He can pass block. He can run block. He has a ton of starting experience. So I think those two picks were very purposeful. Yes, they may have gone higher than they were sort of slotted, but like I said, Arizona did a great job of filling need. And I think in this case, they definitely wanted to add some physicality.
Well, when you have 4 third-round picks, I think you can you can take a reach on a couple of them, right? And I wonder, come to think of it, you mentioned these guys being blue collar, tough football players. You really see it over the last couple of years, the Rams and now the Cardinals, maybe adjusting their offensive philosophy, their overall thinking to deal with that 49er defense, play some smash mouth with that great 49er defense. Maybe that's what's going on here.
And I've always said that the key to winning anything, you got to win within your division, correct? And if the NFC West, and before, remember, let's be honest, this wasn't always the case. NFC West is really turning into like a black and blue division, so which is really cool, right? So I hope we get back to that sort of smash mouth philosophy within the division.
Let's see who else we want to talk about in this draft. Adrian Taylor Demerson. I just remember reading his profile and going, you know what? That's the free safety the Rams need. And then the Cardinals go ahead and draft him. And then there was Christian Jones. I'm pretty sure Christian Jones, offensive tackle, in the 5th round. He was slated to go earlier, was he not?
Yeah, I think any tackle that can pass block coming out of college is going to go higher than round 5. So they got great value with Christian Jones. They also got great value with the kid from the safety that you like from Texas Tech. They got him in round 4. I think his actual number was 104. So they got him at 104. I agree with you. I think he's a rock solid safety. I also like their round 5 pick, Xavier Thomas, that kid from Clemson that when we had mocked him a couple of times, he's another kid that has all the measurables, man. When you watch him play, you see the speed, but the production just wasn't there. So maybe, NFL coaching, a fresh start, I just think that was a great pickup also in the 5th round. And my favorite pick that they in their draft selections is Jaden Davis, the kid from Miami. Yeah. I like that corner from Miami. You and I had talked about him, and I just thought he was just sitting there in round 7. I said, that kid, he can play. He can play football. When you watch a couple of games, you just see him stand out. He needs to work on discipline. He needs to work on tackling, but everything else is there. So I think for them, that was a great value pick in round 7. But overall, I think their draft was a lot like our draft. It was based on what they needed, just like the Rams. It didn't match what a lot of people were saying. Well, this player, he should go at this slot and everything else. They said, these are the players we like. They fill a role for us. These are the players we want. These are the type of players we want. Let's bring them in. And that's what Arizona did. Overall, I would give their draft an A-. I think it was a rock solid draft. I really do. They did a nice job.
Yeah, they had 7 picks in the top 100. So you'd expect them to come away with some good players, which they did. And maybe, like I said, you're picking 4. You have 4 picks in the 3rd round. It gives you a little bit of elbow room to go, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and grab this guy. It's a little early, but we really want him. Let's grab him.
I think this draft was like our draft. It wasn't flashy. I don't know if you agree. Our draft was not flashy. Yeah. Our flashy was all about substance. I think Arizona did the same thing. They did not want to waste, like you were saying. They said we got X number of picks in the top 100. Let's go get the football players that we know can play football. Now, some people might say they took the safe approach, but hey, I think for what they needed to get competitive right away, that's what you need to do. You need guys that can come in and play and contribute.
Yeah, and I think they will be competitive. I think that's a team that take the over on the win total on the Arizona Cardinals. I'm telling you right now. I think by the end of the season, it might be a team you don't want to play. And they're playing pretty good football at the end of the year. It's a 2nd-year coach coming back. Watch out for the Arizona Cardinals. It may take a year or 2, but if I was a Cardinal fan, I'd be pretty happy with this draft and the direction they're pointing. And that's not good news for the Rams necessarily. Rams have done really well against that franchise over the years, but changing of the guard there over the last year and a half, and might be a different beast we're dealing with moving forward. I still have questions about Kyler Murray. He's super talented, but I don't know, man. I just not sure. I think the Cardinals are in a bit of a predicament with him. He's too good to move on from. But is he the guy? That remains to be seen. I love the guy. I'm not trying to pick on Kyler Murray. He's a scary guy to defend. He always has been. But at the same time, I'm not really that fearful. I mean, I know. He was the one guy that was most excited when Aaron Donald retired. That's for sure. It's like, thank God.
He was also the guy that was pissed off when Troy Reader resigned, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. But it'll be fun. See, schedule will be coming out. Hopefully, I think ideally we get them early. I'm telling you. And I think we usually do. But yeah, some people, I saw someone predicting the Rams are going to be playing Detroit on Thanksgiving. I'd really be surprised if that happened, because that's going to be a marquee game regardless.
Yeah.
So why throw it on Thanksgiving when everybody will be watching anyways? That's the way I look at it. But okay, Paul.
That's definitely a bulletin board game, man. The Rams. I mean, that's really going to tell us where they are as a team. If they have that championship mentality, that's my opinion. That game is really going to be a major litmus test for the Rams. If they go into that game like flat and once again like they did in that playoff game, I mean, that's not a good sign. But if they go in, with purpose, determination, and really want to send a message, because listen, Detroit had a good draft also. Detroit had a rock solid draft also. And they're competitive. They're a competitive squad. And, they sent a message that said they're not going to lie down for anybody. So the Rams now, it's, they're in the NFC, right? Detroit's in the NFC. Make no mistake about it. So their paths are going to cross. So it's time to send that message. In that game, it's going to be really important for the Rams to send that message loud and clear of who is the alpha in the NFC. Yeah.
Good stuff, Paul. I think next time, I don't know if we'll do it on a round table. I think on the round table, I think we, Tom and Ian wanted to take another look at the depth chart. But one of these upcoming round tables, or maybe it just be you and me, we'll see how it goes. We'll take a look at another team's draft, maybe the Seahawks. Check in on the Seahawks draft. I know you like their draft haul. They got Byron Murphy for one. So let's do that next time, maybe. Next time it's me and you, unless we can squeeze it in at the end of a round table, perhaps.
And thank you to everybody out there, Ram Nation, for all the comments, all the positive feedback on our segments, and also helping us shape out some new segments like the one today based on your feedback. Thanks for all the great comments about the Puka Power picks and the enjoyment. And I know I feel the same way that Sione Vaki wound up with Detroit, but we got a bunch of winners on our end. Brendan Jackson was a Puka Power pick, and he wound up on our squad. So the next part of that segment will be later on in the season when we see how many of those players actually outplay their position. That's the fun part of it, just like we saw with Puka this year. So thank you for your participation. We look forward to it, and we hope you subscribe.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Paul. Out here until next time from Rams Up. See ya.
Double barrel ram horns.
That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.